My name is Julia Neugarten, and my project title is Catching Feelings, Aspect-Based Sentiment Analysis for Fanfiction Comments about Greek myth. I think I heard about the TNA program when I was working at the Huygens Institute, and I was personally not working on CLS Infra, but some of my colleagues were. And then somebody mentioned that they had fellowships. But that was before I was doing my PhD. So it was actually, at the time, I was a project manager and I was really enjoying it. And I didn't feel like I was in a position to take like 6 weeks of research time independently. That feels like something that's sort of suitable to do in the middle of a PhD. So my actual PhD research is about this corpus of fan fiction about Greek myth from one specific website, that's the Archive of Our Own. And I'm interested in examining the different ways that this fan fiction, so stories that fans write about the stories that they really love, how that sort of transforms the source material that these fans start out with. So a lot of the time with the Greek myth fandom, it's also difficult to say what the source material is, but there are sort of dominant versions of these myths, and my PhD is about figuring out how fans, when they write fan fiction about those myths, make certain changes, keep certain things the same, and then also I am viewing that as a way of seeing how these myths resonate with people. So if somebody does a feminist retelling of a particular story, then it probably means their politics were not represented in the earlier versions, right? So that is what my PhD is about. But then fanfiction has this very complicated status, I would say, in literary studies, where it's not really like an independent work that comes out of one author and is published with one publisher and then becomes this book that we tend to think of books as standalones, right? So instead, fanfiction comes out of the community, and it's really written in dialogue with this community. And so I thought that analyzing the way that readers, who are also very often writers, respond to these stories was an important part of understanding how the stories work. So I wanted to do a part of the research also about comments on fanfiction, and then that's where the TNA came in. So sentiment analysis is the method for mapping positive and negative sentiments in text. So if somebody said, this is great, that's positive, this is terrible would be negative, very obvious. But when you have a text that is a comment, in my case, comments on fan fiction, but I think this goes for like book reviews online as well, even like an Amazon review, it will have a positive part and a negative part. So somebody will say, I love the characters in this story, but the style is not really my thing. And then aspect-based sentiment analysis is basically a way to sort of zoom in on the aspects that are being positively or negatively evaluated in the text. So it's a more fine-grained approach.
Yeah.
And that's also actually why the TNA is great, because my background is in literary and cultural studies. I'm a little bit proficient, I would say, with coding, but something like training a machine learning model is really not within my skill set. Definitely not something I could do by myself. And then the TNA is a really great way for me to work together with people who know a lot about that, who are more skilled in NLP methods and who can help me figure out the best approach to my research questions. Financially, this has also been really great for me because I have to pay my rent at home and it's not cheap. And so I worried if I were to go abroad for a research experience, like how am I going to pay for everything? And the project has really helped with that a lot. So if you're thinking I might not be in an economic position to do an exchange, that might not actually be the case. This research on the comments is going to be part of a chapter of my dissertation about emotion. So I'm looking at the ways emotions are represented in fanfiction stories, but also the ways that readers then also emotionally respond, but also respond evaluatively. And hopefully this will sort of come together in an analysis of if a story is very sad, do readers respond more positively? If a story is sort of carefree, do readers respond more positively? That kind of analysis overall to bring together the content of the stories and the way readers respond to them. there's no need to be scared. Like I recognize this, and I also had maybe this is childish. At some point, I felt a little bit of resentment because it became very clear to me that computational methods were like the ideal road to take if you wanted to study something like fan fiction. But I very specifically went into the humanities thinking I don't want to do anything with computers, right? So here I am. Learning like programming languages after all, in spite of myself, and it's actually brought me a lot. So if you get over that initial resistance, which I can really recognize, it can be super helpful in understanding your data in a more sort of on a larger scale. And the other thing I would say is that the people at my TNA have been incredibly nice, not at all. So I sometimes worry that they will be impatient. Like if we are looking at a bunch of code and I'm like, okay, I don't understand this part, or any of this, then they are super willing to help and friendly and lovely, and so all of that is a great experience. And I'm learning a lot that way because people are so eager to explain. And the other thing is that I think any digital humanities project, you need people from both types of backgrounds, right? You can't, this is different from what I was sort of raised to think of humanities project as, where you have like an individual who is quote unquote brilliant, who sits in a corner office like his entire life, and he has like all the wooden bookshelves and never talks to anyone. That's not first of all, that's not what any research should look like. And second of all, it's really not where a digital humanities project would thrive. So coming into it with the humanities background, but without the computational background, is actually at least 50% of the skills that is needed to bring a project to success. So don't undervalue your own skill set.